Dave, it's good to see you in person this time.
It's good to be here. We did not get to any of the good stuff before we started the recording.
We barely even talked because we knew if we started talking, we're off to the races.
We sat here silently, awkwardly, waiting for this moment that we're at right now.
That's right.
We're freaking out.
All right, so this is what I want to start off with. You've got a new book, Don't Burn This Country, and I was excited when I saw it coming out, and you were on the podcast for the last one.
Oh, yeah.
And I kind of feel like everybody did exactly what you asked them not to do in that book, and now you're like, well, look, if you already burned the book, so like at least don't burn the country down. I feel like we've digressed even further.
That's actually the perfect setup for this because I've been thinking that.
Yeah, I bet.
I've really been thinking that for the last week as we've been leading into promoting the book and the tour and the whole thing. Because, when I wrote Don't Burn This book, the idea was, hey, here are my principles. Here's what I believe in. Here's what I try to live up to, et cetera, et cetera. And here's what I think is the best way for America to flourish and for people to flourish and all that. And clearly, not enough of that worked. It doesn't mean that the ideas are wrong or that they're weak or something like that. It's just that we are in a time, which is why the subtitle of this book is about the woke dystopia. We are in a time of mass destruction of good things. I mean, good things that our parents and grandparents and before that fought for, died for the freedoms that we completely take for granted. We live in such extraordinary freedom, at least for now in the United States. And had the ideas of Don't Burn This book, which were basically classically liberal principles of individual rights, laissez-faire economics, live the life that you want to live within your means, the government shouldn't do too much, and we can talk about how some of my positions have slightly evolved in that sense. But had those ideas really held, and those were the true founding ideals of America, there was nothing in that book that was counter to any of the founding documents of the United States.
Right.
And in many ways, that's what I was so proud of, because I was writing this book that obviously did quite well. And it was like, hey, this is just the stuff translated from the people 250 years ago who were writing far more dense, intense documents that freed us. But unfortunately, over the course of 250 years, we lost a lot of that. And we needed a guy like me to come in and write a book. So had it all worked out, had 250 million people in America picked up that book and been like, man, this stuff makes sense and we better, apply some of this. Well, Don't Burn This Country wouldn't have been necessary.
Right.
That being said, I suspect this is only book 2 of a trilogy because the first book was about the ideas. This book really is about the action that you can take in your own life, hopefully to push against the wokeness and live a better life. The third book, because I suspect this woke thing ain't going anywhere yet, will probably be the last thing. It'll be like pull up the bridges, dig the moat, get the Iron Dome system. Like we're in a lot of trouble. But that the future's never written, so we'll see.
Well, hopefully this is part of the idea, the push to bring some of these concepts back, because I don't know how it's gotten to this point. In fact, I'll ask you about that, because it seems to me so common sense that these are the things, like you said, freed us, that liberated us, that brought more peace and prosperity and abundance. And all of a sudden, now we're talking about things that I don't think have been issues ever, or even for the last 50 years. And now it's like, well, all of a sudden they're back.
It's not only that they're back. So like one that's back is that racism is back.
Right.
We really solved racism in so many ways. And I know that just that statement alone will get the media matters people to clip it and say, see, Rubin said, and he was sitting with a white guy and the guy, had a beard and a flannel shirt and they were obviously white. And it's like, but what they would do with that is just not true. We were becoming a truly post-racial society. That isn't to say that there aren't some racists. There's always going to be some racists. There's always going to be some people that don't like gays, and there's always going to be some people that don't like women or Asian people or people with limps. It's just how it is. That's part of the human condition, which, by the way, if you think you can exterminate all of those things, you're going to have to kill an awful lot of people to do it. I would prefer...
Or control a lot of them.
Well, you control them first, and then you kill
when they
them.
aren't controllable.
I skipped, right.
Sure, right.
I skipped over the control part right to the death part.
Book 3 already.
That's right. That's book 3, how we're going to have to deal with those guys. But there's this bad set of ideas where we solved a lot of stuff. So we solved racism. We really did in most ways. To say that, first off, there were no laws in the United States, and there are no laws, although they're coming back through the progressives, There are no laws that stop you from doing anything based on the color of your skin. There are bad policies that harm people based on the color of their skin, but they're policies usually brought in by Democrats and progressives that keep, say, black people stuck in cycles of poverty because you put them on affirmative action and you give them all these handouts and then you give them subsidized housing, and then it's not their fault. It has nothing to do with the color of their skin. This happens to some white people too that got caught in this. Where if the government just puts you on the dole, it's very hard to get off that dole. If the government says, hey, you can have an apartment that the market says it's $3,000 a month, we'll give it to you for $400, and we're going to give you food stamps and some cash and some other benefits. Well, then after a year of that, let's say, you're not going to suddenly be like, you know what, I really should get out there, bust my ass. Then I'm going to have to lose the benefits, move further away from the cool city or whatever it might be, and work that much harder, sometimes for less. So it's in many ways the people who are pretending to be the anti-racists who are putting in racist policies. So that's one.
Do you think with that, do you think it's intentional? Do you think it is a case of good intentions executed poorly, a combination of both?
Well, you know where the road to hell, what it's paved with.
Sure.
It's paved with good intentions. So I think it's a combination. I think that the average young person that buys these ideas, they're not a bad person.
No, and
First
they don't
off,
know. They're ignorant.
They have no freaking idea. They're ignorant. Our education system is an abject disaster, and it has taught them all of the wrong things. That somehow the system, you should bow to the system and give to the system, and then the system will allow the crumbs to come back to you, and that will somehow be good. And I just don't buy that. I think that's completely flipped upside down. So I think at some level, you have a bunch of people that have just kind of swallowed bad ideas.
Right.
But then you have the people who are genuinely the bad actors who want to control people. So I would say you could take someone like Bernie Sanders, for example. I believe he's a believer in socialism.
I think he does. I think he's a moron, but I think he genuinely believes it.
Yes. So that's a very specific type of person. And it's an odd one because you would think that after 70 plus years on Earth, you would realize what individualism is about. You'd realize what basic economics are about, or a guy who's claimed to fight the system his whole life, who also became a millionaire and owns 3 houses in the midst of it, the socialist leader.
Right.
You would think that he would have learned a little something like, oh, I've been fighting the system my whole life. I hate the system, yet all of my policies are to make the system stronger. All of his policies are more money to the system, more power to the system.
Do you think he hates the system?
Well, so that's where you go to the...
I think he hates the result. And I don't even think it's the result. I should say it this way. He hates the perceived result of that system.
Yes. So that's where a guy like Bernie Sanders, it's like, so we're both agreeing that basically he is a believer. He is a believer of big government and socialism and all that. He constantly tells you that he hates the American system, right? He hates capitalism. He hates the basic tenets of what this country is about. He wants to unend. He is a socialist. So his basic... I don't even know that they say that anymore.
I'm just saying.
For the record, I was way ahead on that. There were 5 years ago, I was like, by the way, guys, they're going to drop the Democratic thing soon enough. And now they don't say it anymore. I mean, AOC flat out says she's a socialist. We let that happen right in front of our eyes. So the question with Bernie, it's like, can you be so wrong about all of your ideas and be a believer? Or is there some other part of him where he's in too deep? I think the other part that happens because they injected the wokeness with it. So Bernie was a socialist before wokeness, right? Before all the hyper-racial stuff, before all the gender stuff. Then he got into this match made in hell with the wokesters, the cultural Marxists. He knows he can't turn back now. I have a feeling if you really sat with Bernie and really knew what was in his head, he would still say he's a socialist in terms of economic policy, and we may find that to be completely wrong. Yeah. I don't really think that he fully buys into this the woke gender stuff and does he not believe in biology the way they don't believe in biology? Right. Does Bernie suddenly really believe that you can't just not be racist, you have to be anti-racist? But they combined into something. And the beauty of it for guys like us and for people that are watching the show is that the revolution eats their own. Bernie, this will not end well for Bernie. You can already see it. He's gone already in a lot of ways, right? So it's kind of funny that I brought him up because he's not that culturally relevant anymore. In essence, he's the old white guy who turned out to be rich that helped them get in the door, but they don't really need him anymore. And the radicals will be far more radical. So I think on Bernie's deathbed, he will have a lot to atone for because he ushered this thing in. I don't think he fully realized what he was ushering in.
I see what you're saying, but I don't know that I would agree that he feels that way even now, because I think he's brainwashed himself. It's like
do you think he buys the woke stuff?
I do.
Yeah, really.
I do, because I think, well, I'll say it this way.
I don't know.
We don't know. We're just
suspicion.
speculating.
Sure.
But here's what I'll say is you take somebody who's religious, for example, and they're a Christian, they live by Christian principles, and pretty normal person, right? And then they get indoctrinated, or they start to take it too far and it becomes almost cult-like.
Yeah.
I've had personal friends of mine take it so far, religion so far, and go so far down that rabbit hole that they've quite literally lost their wealth and abundance, their homes, and their families, because they just went nuts about it. And I think you actually addressed this a little bit in the sheepish propensity that we have as humans, is that we just buy into it and we don't have to think, and we just gradually buy more, and then we're just so entrenched in it that we don't see it any other way.
Well, that's interesting. So it's like, it's hard for us to analyze like what's actually in Bernie's heart and what connects that to his mind.
Sure.
So we probably can't come up with the perfect answer for that. But another example of this that you could use is a guy like Jon Stewart, who for the last 20 years was basically, the meme around Jon Stewart was, more young people get their news from Jon Stewart than anywhere else, right? That's what they kept saying about Jon Stewart. Jon Stewart, I think, is probably for the most part a decent liberal.
I agree.
In that I think he's a decent guy.
Yep.
I think he's a little confused about some of the policies, but he's in Hollywood. The machine really likes him. But have you seen him over the last couple of weeks? He's going full woke now.
I know.
And he's doing these episodes on his show on Apple TV where they pay him at least $10 million a year. I don't know why he doesn't give that to 20 black people, because white people have had their day.
Yeah, for
by
sure.
his logic,
Right,
not by mine.
what they say, sure.
But he's doing these segments, apologize all white people, or all white people this, or white farmers this. And I don't think he really believes it.
No,
It's that for him, it's like he's in that thing now. So now you've surrounded yourself with all of these people, and now what is he? He's worth, I think, around $120 million. He's a super rich white Hollywood comedian.
Mm-hmm.
You're in the muck with these people with these horrible ideas. They will turn on you in a second. So he's got to keep going. It's a deal with the devil in a way.
I can see that.
And I think when you escape that, which is really what my life has been about and these books have been about, when you escape that, you realize that there are so many other interesting people from all sorts of walks of life that are going to have different religious views and different personal views and all of those things. But that we all want to live in the same country together. We all want to be neighbors with each other. We may have our own beliefs on how someone lives their life privately, but we're not trying to impose our beliefs on that. We don't walk around in constantly look at who can I hate and why can I hate them and what are they doing to me?
What did they do to me exactly?
Right. And that's it's such a better thing. It's a happier existence, truly. And not, I toured with Jordan Peterson, as you know, it's not that happiness is the ultimate goal, but it's a more fulfilling existence.
Right.
To just know, hey, I'm sitting across from someone who's a decent guy. We're going to have some differences. We can talk about those differences and it's just fine.
Right.
I'm not looking to take your stuff and make you bow to me or vice versa. That's what this country is all about. That's what we got to fight for now.
Yeah. It's interesting. I was telling Todd, I had a Uber driver on the way over here, and I told him I'm originally from Utah. We were talking, and he's like, "Oh yeah," he's like, "I knew some Mormon people from Utah," and he started talking about Mormonism, and he wasn't bad mouthing, but he was like poking at it a little bit, and so I just let him go. And then when he's all done, I said, "Oh, I'm Mormon, by the way."
Yeah.
And he was like, "Wait, what?" And he was so nervous,
Yeah.
like so that maybe he offended. I'm like, I'm not offended in the slightest, like no big deal, because it's funny. That's it. It's just funny. It's not that big a deal.
That does not surprise me at all, because I can tell you that from my experience over the last however many years I've been doing this publicly, I have consistently found Mormons to be the nicest, most welcoming, best sense of humor. One of the best nights of my life was when I was on tour with Jordan Peterson in Salt Lake City. That was the week of, what's the big Mormon week in Salt Lake?
General Conference.
General Conference. So that was, General Conference was there. So, basically every Mormon in the country is there. Mormons
Right.
everywhere.
Everybody's watching it.
You throw water
there.
on them, they're multiplying like Mormons everywhere. First off, everyone looks great. They're happy, social. Yeah. Everyone's talking to each other. The whole city was abuzz. We had an off night. So I did, I think it's Wisecrackers is the comedy club in Salt Lake City. Sold out the show. And I went up there, I made some Mormon jokes, I made some gay jokes. I was just messing with the crowd for an hour and a half. Then I brought on Jordan as a surprise.
Oh, that's cool.
It was electric in that room. And, look, obviously, Mormon doctrine has some issues with me or my lifestyle or whatever. And I'm happy to talk about that if you want. But the people, in terms of, here are human beings in a room talking about stuff and enjoying each other. Right. And putting aside everything that I just told you there, the fact that Book of Mormon was the #1 show on Broadway for years, there's a lot of other religions that would not have tolerated that.
Oh, definitely.
And Mormons did. And now, ironically, what's happening now that I think it's coming back to Broadway and they've decided,
really?
I think they've decided to take out some of the jokes because now it's too offensive. But not because Mormons find it too
Everybody
offensive.
Else,
it's because people. The woke lefties find it too offensive. Right. There's no Mormon running around like, oh, this is too offensive. There might have been some that maybe weren't so thrilled with it, but I think most were like, oh, some of our ideas are getting out there. It's a little more mainstream. That's right. Cool. But you got to give credit where credit is due. Here is a religion that's saying, hey, poke fun at us. You're allowed to poke fun at us. Mel Brooks has been doing this for a long time with Judaism, right?
Yeah.
And that's kind of what keeps people going. Oh, you can laugh. You can grapple with some stuff in a fun way. As a general rule, I love Mormons, truly.
I also think it's a good way to get out conversations that would be very strenuous, to put it mildly, if you didn't have a way to have like that little release valve.
Oh, yeah.
Like, let's make fun of it, because if we don't, we're all thinking it, right? Like, you could talk about, your lifestyle. You mentioned that. And, clearly there's differences of opinion there. And yet, here we are talking. I don't think less of you.
Yeah.
I don't think you think less of me. And
with your traditional lifestyle.
So what? Yeah, exactly. As that's a threat. I don't care. This is how I choose to live my life. You choose to live your life one way, and cool. To
me, what you just described right there is the true American ideal, because the founding documents, first off, God is in the founding documents, right? Right. And the founders all talked about being a people, in essence, that, this is for a moral people, that this set of documents, the Declaration of Independence, the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, that there's a certain morality attached to it. But they weren't forcing their morality on anyone. So there was always a little bit of a tension between individual rights and then what is the best way for humans to flourish. I try to get into that in the book, that, you start as just individuals, but then individuals usually come together in a family unit, and then family units come together in a wider community, your local community, the schools that you send your kids go to, your synagogue or your church or whatever it might be. Now, from my position, the family, I think, can look a lot of different ways, and that is... It doesn't mean it's better or worse or anything else. There are reasons that it will be different. So I happen to be married to a man. There will be no traditional mom in the house. Now, that does present challenges. I don't sit here and pretend that it doesn't. We know how important women are, obviously. My mom is a woman. We know about women.
You know women.
So, we're going to have my husband.
Are you a biologist, though?
I'm not even a freaking biologist.
Let's make sure we throw this disclaimer out there, because, guys, he's not a biologist.
To be totally honest, my producer's sitting there. I had him Googling woman before we got here, so I felt that I could say it confidently. Yeah. But that's the stupidity that we're dealing with right now. I mean, we literally have a Supreme Court nominee who's going to get on the Supreme Court, who was afraid to say what a woman is. You don't need... I Googled it on my show just to give the actual technical... But do you have a uterus? You're a woman. Like, that's it. That basically
we know
is
what it is.
And she was afraid to say it. And that fear then, I mean, that's seriously dangerous stuff. This is someone... Roe v. Wade is going to get kicked up to the Supreme Court, most likely, while she's sitting on the Supreme Court. You might want to know what a woman is. I mean, we're going through surrogacy right now. I know an awful lot about when the egg meets the sperm.
Right.
And literally a day later, if it's a male or a female. They'll also tell you that sex doesn't exist. It's like, so...
It's right there.
My doctor, who's like the #1 fertility doctor in the United States, is he a freaking maniac? Yeah. When he showed me the pictures and he's like, male or female?
Well, there's a game that's played.
So they do this. It's with everything, yeah.
It's the word game, right? So the first thing was, well, yes, we acknowledge sex, of course.
Yeah.
It's biology. But we're talking about gender, that's different. And now they're using the term male, female, woman, man, interchangeably. Woman, that could be anybody. Wait, so now are you talking about sex or gender? Well, it's just whoever. And they're conflating the two. And that, like you said earlier about democratic socialists. Well, make it convenient, make it so people accept it. Now we'll get rid of that and be really what we want it to be.
There's a fundamental reason for that, which I was trying to defend against in the first book, which is that liberalism, the strength of liberalism is also its weakness. So true liberalism, the idea of individual rights and that you want people to live how they want to live, and hopefully a society can roughly organize around that, that's a beautiful thing. The problem with that is that liberals, in a modern sense, have put tolerance, or actually what now has become pretend tolerance, above everything else. So once you have an equal society, meaning black people can vote and women can vote and gay people get married, there's no one that's a legal member of the United States that has any rule set against them because of their immutable characteristic. And if there was, I would be fighting to reverse that. But it wasn't enough for the modern liberal that felt that tolerance should go over equality. And that's where equity came in. And that's where suddenly we went from gays can get married, which should have been enough. And by the way, it was enough for a lot of gay people. Any gay person of the gay rights movement of the 70s that just wanted to literally be able to be in the same relationship as anyone else, that were being arrested at Stonewall and everything else, that's what they were fighting for. They weren't fighting to teach second graders about gender identity and then hide that conversation from the parent, which is happening all over the country. And now they're making it sound like Ron DeSantis is the crazy one.
Right, the
but
Don't Gay Say bill.
But real quick, to back up to the parental thing. So I get that in an ideal world, or in the majority, I don't want to say ideal exactly, but in the majority of the world, obviously a family is construed of a mother and a father and children, and then hopefully grandparents and a wider family unit. I think that the family can look a little bit different, but you don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater, so to speak. So my husband's mom is going to be living with us for a couple months right at the beginning because we want a strong female influence there. Sure. And to also help us. We don't know everything about babies and all of that stuff. Yeah. So not only that, but his sister, who has been a nanny for young children before and young toddlers, is going to be with us. My sister, who lives in Miami, only a few miles away from us, she's pregnant right now as well, due the day before we're due. So we intend on incorporating all of those things. And also, you talk about male, female, and gender roles and all of these things. I'm not the most nurturing person in the world, actually. Like, I like sports and video games and whatever. I am what I am. Like, that's what I like. And I love what I do for a living. And I love this. My husband is actually, he has that part of him. Sure. He has that fully nurturing, loving part of him, and will be able to offer some of that. Maybe not all that a mother would, but you know what? People are born to drug addicts. People are born in abusive relationships, all of these things. And I'm not likening gay parenting to that at all. But the point is that I think the structure can look a little bit different, and the result of the society that we want to live in can actually look the same, or in some ways even stronger, actually, if we can incorporate that. I don't even remember what the question was, but I don't know. I just
it was good.
That was Dave Rubin's opus right there.
Well, and the interesting thing you said is you have more of that masculinity, right? Yeah. Like my wife will tease. She's like, "Did you hear that baby? Like, why is that baby crying?" I'm like, "I didn't even hear it." And then we had some nieces over. That's
definitely going to be me.
And a baby was our youngest niece was crying, and I just kind of like looked at her, and my wife was like, "Don't you feel bad?" I'm like, "No." Yeah. Like the baby's looking at me. I'm like, that doesn't work on me at all. But the thing that we need to remember, or maybe your husband has more of those what would generally be considered feminine characteristics. It doesn't make him a woman.
No, so
right?
That's the. And by the way, that is a really interesting point, because you know what's going to happen. People don't. I've been trying to explain this for a while. Do you know Douglas Murray, who's the British conservative writer? He wrote Madness of Crowds.
Oh, I know the book. I don't know. Right.
He's a brilliant author, and what he did in his last book. Now he happens to be gay also, but he's a British conservative, and he in his last book,
which is more. I just want to interject, just so I know, it's more of a. What we would consider a liberal, correct?
It's more of what we would consider an old school liberal. So,
okay, got it.
So it's more of what the ideas of my first book were about.
Got it.
Because their version, it's a whole other thing. Right. When they say liberal, they don't really mean American liberal, and now progressives have destroyed our version of liberal.
Yep.
This is where you can start getting in the weeds with the words, and it really gets nuts. But that is an important distinction. But in his last book, Madness of Crowds, he does a chapter on LGB, but then he does a separate chapter on T, because his argument is these things have nothing to do with each other. I believe that I am in the body that I am supposed to be in.
Right.
And then I have an attraction, right? The same way you are in the body you're supposed to be in, and you have an attraction. Right. And that's so we're not denying any biology there, right? The trans situation is a different thing. I'm not even commenting on what's going on in a trans person's mind, but if they fundamentally believe they are in the wrong body, there is a biological disconnect from the mental part. That's just the truth. And then in my view, as an adult, you can live however you want. If I walk out of here and then you put on a dress and lipstick and go out, I mean, man, it ain't going to look great. But like,
not if I keep the beard.
Like, have fun, you know? Like, I think he's ready to go with you.
He's
He
like,
kind of was like, yeah, let's do it. Okay. But when you talk about the feminine quality of some of this stuff, the reason that this stuff is actually anti-gay, and I really believe this, Douglas hits on this a little bit.
When you say this stuff, you're talking about the trans type things?
It's actually anti-gay because now think about it. Now you have, like, let's say a 6-year-old boy, and the 6-year-old boy, instead of being into G.I. Joe and Transformers or whatever the kids are playing with now, the traditional boy stuff, let's just say he likes Barbie or whatever. In the mind of the wokester now, and in the mind of the teachers and the entire system, he's not really a gay. Most likely, he's a gay boy. In reality, he will grow up to be a gay man.
Maybe, sure,
probably.
Right.
That's probable. If he's playing with all girls' toys and all that stuff, that's probably what he is. But in the woke mind, he's actually a girl in a boy's body, and then they will do exactly what we know they are doing right now, which is pushing them to transition. And again, at the end of the day, when they're an adult or whatever it is, if they want to transition, then so be it. But what we are doing to minds that are not developed yet.
Right.
And so do you see why it's anti-gay, actually? Because in a weird way,
it dismisses that potentially, sure.
The parent is saying, I would rather have a daughter if my son likes Barbies than have a gay son.
But
so it's really complex.
I hear
bizarre,
what you're saying on that. But I disagree in that I don't know that they're thinking of it that way. Like, I don't know they're saying, well, I'd rather my son be a girl than...
No, but it's the end result.
It is, but I don't think that's their intention. I don't...
So it gets back to the intentions thing that we were talking about with Bernie, right? So it's hard... Like, I can't judge all of their intentions. However, when the entire cultural machine, which is rampaging across this country right now, is pushing trans, right? It really is pushing. It's like, why is Nickelodeon yesterday tweeting about trans this, and then Disney wants trans that, and I mean, the entire machine's doing it. That I would argue it's almost irrelevant what the intentions are by the parents. If it's either, it could be their intention, it could be in the back of their mind, oh, somehow I'd rather have a son who appears to be a girl so that they don't seem like a gay boy, perhaps. Or it's just, you're just caught up in the mob. Yeah. You're just caught up in the cultural I have a trans son.
I think it's more
like,
that.
It's pretty freaking cool. I got a trans son. Like,
because if you look at the trajectory of trans people, it's not, there's nothing biologically that has changed over the past, let's say, 100 years.
Well, I thought Alex Jones said it was licking toads or something. Wasn't that something?
Who knows? Who knows? It's just a very... The issue that I have is, let's take transgenderism again and say, all right, so you have somebody that has expressed that they are not in the correct body. And so then we have words, again, these are the words, gender reaffirming care, health care. We go down the rabbit hole on that one.
Which the government will pay for if you're in a federal prison right now, which is bananas, yeah.
But they won't ever address the mind. That's where I get hung up. It's like, okay, like maybe there's an issue, sure. Why is the health not to address what's going on in the mind?
Well, what's interesting about that, and Jordan Peterson has talked about this a little bit, is so let's say you believe that it's fully a mental. It is. I don't think there's an argument about that. Let's say it's a mental condition. So meaning, and I don't mean that necessarily in a negative sense, but let's say you truly in your own mind believe you are the other sex than what your body tells you. Well, just because you transition, it doesn't mean that all your problems are going to be solved. You still may not look the way you want to look. You may not feel the way you think you're magically going to feel. You know, you could wake up the next day and have all the genitals you feel you were supposed to have and boobs and the whole thing. It may not solve all the problems. Right. And did you watch, I only watched one season of it, but did you watch the show Transparent by any chance?
No, I didn't.
So it was about this, in essence, that this father of 60 years old who was a normal professor with a somewhat functioning family just sort of announces he's trans, and they go through this whole thing. And then at the end, he's starting to realize he's not happier. And it's actually destroyed a lot of things too. Mm-hmm. I'm not saying that's always the case, of course. But I think what they're tricking people to think is, oh, if I can just change these external things about me, I will magically be happier. But, you could liken it to plastic surgery in some sense. If a woman is looking in the mirror and like, if I just was more like this or more like this, or like I'll be happier. And next thing you know, it's like I went to Mar-a-Lago once, and you go into this place in West Palm Beach, and I like those people, but it was like going into the cantina scene in Star Wars. that with crazy faces. And I was that's Hammerhead over there, and it just turned out to be a rich woman,
So all right. So I'm wondering if you ever come across this argument, because I think the prevailing belief, and I don't know how long ago it was, is that being homosexual was a mental illness.
Yeah.
And so I'm assuming you wouldn't say that that's the case.
I don't believe it's a mental illness.
Okay, so
I
believe you ever ran across that debate where a trans person will say, well, people used to believe that homosexuality was a mental disorder.
Sure. So I don't know that I've had a trans person directly say it to me, but I'm completely fine, and I'm glad that you asked. I mean, I think it's worthy of talking about, and people are afraid to talk about these things. Well, first off, the governing body of the American Psychiatric Association has said that it's not. Now, let's pretend they're all insane, because actually a lot of these organizations have all gone woke and are bananas and everything else.
Very politically driven as well.
What I would argue, what I would say is that is being gay an outlier sexuality? Obviously, the most people, by most accounts, 90% of people are heterosexual. There are gay giraffes. There are gay penguins. I mean, there's a lot of, go on YouTube. Like these things exist in nature outside of the human condition. So I don't deny that I am a man, right? Like, so I'm not having one disconnect. Nothing that is going on in my head is a disconnect of biology. And I choose to be with someone that makes me happy and fulfilled and all of those things. Is that an outlier thing that someone may say, well, this person is, well, I don't know what you would say. This person's crazy or deranged or whatever. I actually suppose someone could say that. And it's not for me to stop them from saying it. The best thing that I can do, in essence, is live the best life that I can. And within the construct of an American system based on individual rights and freedom, as long as I have equal rights, I actually don't care what people say. I don't just say that. Like, people say, I don't care what anyone says. Well, I really don't. Like, if we did not have equal rights, I would have a chip on my shoulder and righteous indignation.
Of course.
But we have equal rights. And that's what's also so perverse about what's going on here in Florida with the Don't Say Gay bill, because they're making it seem like there's an assault on gay people. Mm-hmm. It's not. Ron DeSantis literally sent me and my husband 2 onesies, because we're having 2 kids, onesies that babies wear. He sent them. Yeah. They're Ron DeSantis, like future Florida voter.
Oh, is that right?
Freedom. It's like, I saw him a few days ago, introduced him to my husband. He immediately said, congratulations on the kids, guys. Very happy for you. He doesn't hate gay people. He does not want a state employee telling a 6-year-old that they're not the gender that they are, while also being able to hide that from the parent. That's what this is about. That's what this is about. So the real truth is, if there's someone out there that has their own personal religious belief or personal psychological belief, whatever it is they believe about gay people or anything else, I don't care that much. I really don't. Like, I'm probably not going to be the best of friends, but you're entitled to I believe in religious liberty. You're entitled to your beliefs. You are. You can't legislate people's lives. That's what I would say.
Yeah, no, that makes.
I would never, for example, I would never force a Mormon church to do a gay wedding. I think maybe there are some. Maybe are there any Mormon churches that do? I'm not sure.
Well, so here's my thought.
There's a lot of Christian churches that do.
Can you be a Mormon and promote that? Well, no, right? Just like you can't be Catholic and believe in abortion. You can't say I'm Catholic except for. Okay, then you're not Catholic. Now, that's not to say we don't mess up and we sin and we have things that we need to repent for. We do. But you can't say you're a member of the Yankees and then go train, with the Red Sox.
Right.
So you're not a Yankee.
So that's one where it's a little bit of like what our idea set is versus how we live our lives. So I get you. So Joe Biden will always say what a proud Catholic he is. And then he basically at this point, as the leader of the Democratic Party, is for abortions at any point.
Right.
Like that seems, putting aside religion, that seems completely insane to me. Trust me, as I said, we're going through surrogacy. I'm very aware of how many weeks, now the baby looks like a potato. Now the baby looks like an orange before that, and it's going to look like a watermelon after that, and the size of this. Like, you cannot tell me that at 5 months this is not a living child, and even before that, and without getting too deep on that. But so he has this real disconnect from his Catholic beliefs to the things that he puts into policy. But we all have some version of that, right? We all have like a set of ideas that we aspire to believe in, let's say, and hopefully mostly do, versus how we act. I mean, the Catholic Church may not be for gay marriage, and then it also had the worst, most horrific sex scandals of the last 200 years. That's not going by Catholic doctrine, but I don't blame all Catholics for that, obviously.
Right.
So this is where this is where all of those things come into some level of conflict.
Yeah, that's a good point. That is,
but I would never force you to.
And we always, all of us live outside of our ideals and values at times, right? Yeah. We aren't always living to who we think ourselves to be. Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, I would say that. I'll give you the answer that I gave Ben Shapiro on this years ago, before Ben and I were friendly. I think it was the first time he was on my show, and we had never met before that. And Ben is an Orthodox Jew, so he doesn't believe in same-sex marriage.
I actually heard him talk about that. I mean, he's talked about it open, but I think specifically with your friendship with him, I think it was on Rogan or something that he had talked about your friendship, but the disconnect in the beliefs there.
Yeah. So look, so first off, again, I believe in religious liberty. I'm not going to force an Orthodox Jew to be married to a gay guy, and I wouldn't force a Mormon to either. This is just such obvious stuff, right? So what do you think you are if you think that? You think you're a god. I don't think I'm a god. If I was to believe that, yes, everyone must believe what I believe, like, that's bad stuff, right? Yeah. So what I said to Ben when we first discussed it was, I'm not here to convince you of anything that you don't believe in. The best I can do is, Ben, I said, I hope we'll have these conversations for the next 60 years. And when I'm 85 and you're 81, and I've lived a decent life and hopefully raised a family and done it roughly right, that you'll turn to me and say, Dave, you know what? You did all right. And that would be enough. Right. That actually would be enough for me. Otherwise, like, I'm not trying, what right do I have to tell anyone what their own personal belief system is? I think you can do things by living a certain way, and that's probably the best you could do.
Well, and even if, let's say in that case, even if he did not do that.
Yeah.
So what?
So what?
Like, that doesn't... Okay, so then you lived the last 80 years of your life without approval from Ben Shapiro. And?
That's okay.
Right.
And the funny part is, people will tell me, I see this from lefties all the time, Ben Shapiro hates you. He judges you. It's like, Ben has been to my house a million times. We're obviously allies politically, despite some differences. We have some differences, including on abortion and some other stuff. And it's like, we roughly want to live in the same country. Mm-hmm. The people who are constantly telling me what a self-hating gay I am, and he's an awful homophobe. It's like, I'm not sure I want to live in the country with those people. They're the ones constantly telling us how horrible we are for trying to bridge a divide. Right. That's what we're trying to do, which is what humanity is all about. We're trying to solve something. They're telling us how great they are while they're telling us that we're evil. I mean...
Well, I just think that what we've got into in society today is just too big of an emphasis on ourselves. So there is individual liberties we have. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about me placing myself at the center of the universe and thinking that anything that you disagree with me on is a direct threat to what I believe and my value system. That's
what wokeness has done more than anything else. And you have to give it credit. Destroyed a lot of good stuff in not that much time. People have argued there's been a slow march through the institutions, and this probably started in the 60s in colleges, and it's only in the last, say, 10 years that it really burst forth into the insanity that it is now. But you got to give the devil his due. This thing, as evil as it is, it's effective. It's seriously effective at destroying so many things.
What would you say is the effective part of it? Are you saying, like, from a marketing/propaganda perspective?
Yeah.
Or, okay.
Yeah.
So how do we take that information and apply it on other sides of the equation?
So I often compare it, and in the book I compare it to the Alien in the original, remember, 1977 Alien, Sigourney Weaver, the first Alien movie. She's having this debate after the alien has killed almost everyone on the ship, and she's having this debate with the doctor on the ship, who later turns out to be a robot. And she doesn't understand. He loves this thing. He really admires this thing. And she's going, what are you talking about? It's killing everybody. And in essence, he says, this thing is merciless. It's remorseless. It knows what it wants. It's the perfect organism. In some ways, I think you can liken wokeness to that. It has destroyed so much. It has brainwashed so many people. It has run and destroyed our media institutions. And look what it's done to Disney and all of these things that we once loved. So the question is, how do we deprogram people from that?
Right.
I think some of the ideas in some of these books are the right way. I think getting back to understanding what you just said, basically, that all of these people think that because they think something, that it must be true, and that they then have the authority to then push that on everybody else. Man, that's dangerous. That's what all of the worst things in humanity have been done in the name of it. I mean, what was Hitler really doing? You know, everyone's called Hitler now and Nazis and everything else. Sure. But what did Hitler really want? He wanted his perfect, say, Aryan state, but in essence, he wanted his worldview to be not only for the people of Germany, but then he wanted greater Germany. Sure. He wanted all of Europe, and it wouldn't have stopped there. That's what they've done. I mean, it sounds like a crazy jump, but Hitler was just one person until he was a megalomaniac that got a lot of decent people to do horrible things. So all of these kids that are in essence destroying all of our universities, you know, shouting down speakers, violently threatening people, these movements based on tolerance that break windows and Antifa and BLM. What have you built? What have you guys built? It's really easy to burn stuff. It's not that easy to build stuff.
The one of the biggest challenges, I think, is a lot of this leftist woke ideology, whatever you want to call it, is very emotional. It's very emotionally charged. It's based on feelings. You know, you even look at some of the most horrible atrocities from Hitler to what we're seeing now, to a lesser degree, obviously. It's all based on victimhood. You're the victim.
Yep.
You know, we were victimized, and so we're going to rise up and overcome this victimization. And then one of the things that you said in the book, which I do like, that it's very practical, because you're saying, here's what we need to do. That's a question I get all the time. What do we do about it? Is that you said, and I'm paraphrasing, but you know, you kill it with logic and reason. Yeah. And I kind of rolled my eyes a bit. I agree with you.
Yeah, I got you.
But how do you reason with unreasonable people?
So this is the great question of our time, because I think what happened was a certain set of liberals thought they could reason with it. So this is where I would say sort of like the Bill Maher liberals that are not bananas. He's obviously not nuts. He's trying to be
thinking about these things.
He's trying to be a decent liberal, but he has no defense for this thing. And that's why, in essence, he sounds like a conservative now. He just basically now is saying what conservatives said 5 years ago, and he's saying that he's a liberal. It doesn't really work anymore. I think conservatives, generally speaking, have had a better defense against this, probably because of religion mostly, because they believe that there was something outside of just the political nitty-gritty and everything that goes on during the day that they could fall back on. So even if you look at COVID, let's say, so many people went completely insane, insane, demanding that other people get injected forcibly by the government for their safety, for a vaccine that never worked as promised. And
I saw a guy get in a fight, or want to fight another guy, apparently, because he walked too close to him and he didn't have a mask on.
Not here in Florida. Couldn't have
been
in
Florida. It was video. Sorry, it was something on social media. No, not here.
That better not have been in Florida.
Actually, in Florida, when I got here, the person on the bus said, you have to have your mask on. I'm like, I thought we were in Florida.
Really? In Florida?
This was at the airport, so maybe it was still part of the airport or something. I don't know.
So that's one of the things that I know DeSantis is really trying to fight right now. Yeah. I think that's the next fight on the horizon, is they still have not let this BS go on the airplanes and at the airports. You know, I'll tell you, since COVID started, I swear to you, every single time I get off the plane, I take the mask off and walk through the airport without a mask, and I have never once been confronted. Because that's the other twisted part of what they've done. We're all policing each other.
Right.
We're all, but we're also not policing each other. That's the funny thing. We're all kind of behaving because we don't want to be called out. And on the other hand, if you just go against the thing, nobody says anything. You know, every now and again you'll get the Karen yelling at you.
I had one person at an airport one time. I was walking out. I was actually walking out. I didn't have my mask on. Sir, you need to have a mask on. I said, go away, leave me alone. And he put his head down and walked off.
I'll tell you a good one.
Get out of here.
I go to, so I've been in Florida for about 4 months, and last month I had to go to LA for 1 day. And I really did not want to go, but I was taping a PragerU video, and I love those guys. And I had to go for literally 1 day. And we get off the plane, I take my mask off, I'm walking through the airport, and I go to Coffee Bean and Tea Leaf. It's like a Starbucks kind of thing. and I don't have my mask on. And I said to the girl, could I have a medium iced coffee? And she looked at me and she said, you have to put your mask on. I can't serve you if you don't have your mask. But meanwhile, she's behind glass and everything else at the airport.
Protected.
And I said to her, I swear to you, I said this to her. It was 2 days after the State of the Union. And I said, ma'am, I don't know if you saw the State of the Union, but Joe Biden, who I believe is 78 years old, was in a room with no windows with all of those geriatric people, and they were kissing and hugging and sniffing hair. I said it exactly like that. And I kid you not, she looked at me. Which camera am I looking into here? Where do you want me to look? Over here. She looked at me and she went like this. Her eye, I broke her. Her eyes actually crossed. Like she couldn't. It was like such a crazy thing that I said to her. She was like, "We cannot serve you unless." Like went into like full on robot mode, and I was like, "I have to get. I'm gonna curse the fuck out of this town."
Yes.
Because it's so insane. Yeah.
It is a wild thing to see so many people comply with something they know is not correct.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. So the point of all that was that I have found consistently, I'd love to know your thoughts on this, that people who are some level of believer, doesn't matter what they believe in, I'm not even prescribing this to a specific religion, in way less numbers went crazy over COVID than non-believers, meaning that the atheists, the rationalists, the science worshipers, they all went crazy. And in some ways, you can't blame them. They turned Fauci into God. They turned the CDC into the Temple Mount. And congratulations, you all went crazy because they change their rules every given day.
Right.
So people who said, I don't worship these things, I have whatever my set of beliefs are, didn't go crazy in that. That kind of tells you something.
I think what that is, I could be wrong because I haven't really thought about this question, is that I believe that most of these types of religions worship a God that says we have given you autonomy over your own life, free will. So you have to choose what's best for yourself. Now here's a code that you should follow. This is God's plan, his code that you should follow, and that leads to a prosperous life and eternal life. This is all religions.
Yeah.
But you get to decide. And that isn't the religion of the government. You don't get to decide.
So in a way, when the government goes crazy, that basically gives you a little bit of a force field. Some people's force field is much stronger, and they were really able to stay sane throughout this. Mm-hmm. And some people really went nuts. I would also liken this to a little bit of the Trump stuff. It was like there was a certain set of people who, if you only believe in the here and now, and you only believe that what the government says is the way the world is, and then this orange man comes in and he tweets a lot and he says funny things and we grabbed this woman and, whatever. Or at least he said he grabbed a woman. No one even knows that he did it. It's like, I could see how you'd go nuts if you just believe that was it. But if you believe something else is going on, you actually might be a little calmer about the whole thing. Right. And I think that's one of the reasons I didn't go nuts. To me, at this point, I like anyone that didn't go nuts over the last 2 years. If you
all you have to do is be normal.
If you're within 10% of sane, you don't have to be 90% there. If you're just hanging around on one side of sane, like I'm pretty much with you at this point, but so many people went so crazy and we got to do some of the work to bring some of them back.
What do you think Trump will run again? I know you personally know Trump. Do you think he's going to run for office or president?
Look, everyone around him that I know is saying he's going to run.
Really?
I think that in some ways it would be best if he doesn't. I
agree with that.
So I think you can make arguments both ways. So I'll give you both. So one, the argument for it is that he still has so much energy around him, so much of the base around him, the rallies, if he ran, it upends the entire thing again.
Once again.
The
even
media
more so,
goes,
probably.
Yeah, even more in a way.
Yeah.
It opens up all these wounds about the Twitter ban and all of these things. It actually might be such a shock to the system that it's exactly what we need. And that since no one else can do that, that's the argument for him. The argument against him, I think, is more robust because the argument against him is many levels. It's on one, would the system ever let him win? Which
good point.
I don't want to get us banned from YouTube or podcast platforms or anything else, but would the system let him win? That's number one. Number two, Biden, who obviously has dementia and is hated, and with all of the problems that we have with gas prices and inflation and everything going on in Russia and Ukraine and disaster of Afghanistan and the list goes on and on, he's so wounded, and Kamala is so hated and obviously inept that their voter turnout is going to be seriously depressed.
It's diminished.
Right. But what would increase it?
Having Trump run.
You get Trump to run, magically 5 more million people, bam,
right,
appear out of nowhere,
yeah.
right? So that, I think, is a major issue, too. Third is, if Trump honestly believes the election was stolen, if that's truly his position, unless you've done work to solve that problem, your candidacy makes no sense.
Walking right back into it.
It makes no sense. So I think he has a series of problems. DeSantis is obviously the best guy for the job, and he's fighting through the machine right now. He's in training right now. He really is. If this is Rocky IV, this is him in Moscow, you know.
Yeah, I think he's learned. I mean, obviously everybody's watched him, and I think he's learning, and I think he's testing and experimenting with his messaging. It's from what I see, it tends to be on. I think the thing that DeSantis has for him is that he's just as much of a fighter as Trump is, without all the baggage and bullshit that Trump has.
I totally agree. And look, the question will be ultimately, as a Floridian, I want him to crush his election in a few months. You know, he's up for re-election right now. Yep. Every marker points that he's going to win in like an extraordinary landslide. I want that to then model across the country. So sort of like Youngkin winning in Virginia was a signal to the country, hey, we're going to fight critical race theory. Well, now DeSantis winning by a landslide could be a signal to the country. Red state governors that are strong will win. Then you get some other wins elsewhere. Okay, now we've got something cooking. While the blue states continue to just impale themselves, willingly just stab themselves in the heart. If he wins by a landslide, really solidifies what's going on here in Florida, which is the tip of the spear of freedom in the world right now. It really is. Then if he feels, okay, this place is in good hands, either my lieutenant governor, I met her the other night, she's really, really great, or we figure out that Mayor Suarez in Miami, who I think is fantastic, he's going to be the heir apparent, and we're going to really, all within the legal confines of the system.
Right.
You figure out what the future of Florida is going to be, and then he says, this is my moment, let's roll.
I'm doing it, yeah.
I think that works. That being said, I know this sounds a little weird, but in some ways I care more about Florida than the country right now. I don't mean that because I don't love this country. I freaking love this country, but the system was set up so that the states were supposed to matter way more. That's how it was supposed to be 200 years ago. And Florida's proving that right now. I mean, trust me, I lived in California for 8 years. California is a different country than Florida.
No doubt.
We happen to be under the banner of the United States for now. But at this point, what really is uniting us? It's very hard to say. Yeah,
I agree, and I think the states are designed that way, but it isn't happening that way. And the federal government is constantly grasping for more power through executive order, through all sorts of things that we see, manipulation of all this kind of thing. It's a very frustrating thing, but I can see where you're coming from as not even being selfish, but where is he going to do the most good? And also, look, if you look at this as an ideological war, if we were in a physical war right now, there's tactical retreat. There are times when you go on the offense more. There's times when you protect home base more. You have to really think through all of those things. And I think that would be it. It was sort of like, remember at the beginning of COVID when Trump kept saying, I'm going to let the states decide. Every state has different things. Florida, it's warm in Florida, but they have the second oldest population and it's more dispersed than, say, New York City metropolitan area, which is more seasonal and people are living on top of each other. Let the states figure it out. There isn't one solution fits all. The same people who thought he was Orange Hitler were demanding that he take more power to the federal government to force the states to do things. Right. None of it made any sense, but because everyone decided that, what do you believe? Well, I believe whatever Trump doesn't believe. Exactly.
That's not a belief system. That will make you pretty freaking crazy.
Yes. Yeah. Well, especially if because who knows what he's thinking. Yeah. And he can be this one day and this the other day. And so if you're basing it on that, you're all over the place.
Wasn't that maybe the magic to him? That he realized he could get his opponents to say anything.
Yes.
Anything. He could get them to backtrack on any heartfelt position just because he took that. Look, everyone used to be for peace in the Middle East. This was like the thing, right? Who was against peace? Suddenly, he literally gets Israel to sign, I think, 8 peace deals. And supposedly there were about 12 more. I mean, literally like 12 more on the way. He gets that to happen. And suddenly everyone in every think tank, Washington Post, New York Times, these are all fake. And actually, peace doesn't make sense because... It's like, man, you people.
So let's pivot a little bit. There was one part in the book, and I can't remember the name of it. I think you called it the lesbian poverty trap. Is that right?
The 18th century lesbian poetry trap, yes.
Yes.
There's a lesbian poverty trap, too. That's something
poetry,
else.
Yes. Yeah. Tell me about that. Because I read that, and I was very curious about this
Yes.
particular topic.
The essence of the chapter is that you better know some things and go get educated on some things. If you go to college to get learned on 18th century lesbian poetry,
Not poverty.
but go to get learned on 18th century lesbian poverty, which I'm sure was a thing. You know, that must have been something.
I don't know. I don't know
that they teach
Google
that.
random things like that.
You don't want to Google image search that. That's a whole other thing. But in essence, it's that if you go to school to learn things that apply in no way to a real life, a life of substance and meaning, that you'll be able to do something, like literally be able to change a tire,
right,
or something that will be applicable to the world, you're going to end up being frustrated and angry and ridiculous. Somebody said, I saw somebody on a podcast a couple weeks ago, made a point that I wish I could remember who it was, but the basic point was the young people now, so you're 16 to, let's say, right out of college right now, you're something like 16 to 21, they can't do anything. They don't know how to change a tire. They couldn't do the most basic plumbing, or, you know, if you had a little roofing problem or whatever. I'm not saying I'm the best. I really do like doing house projects, so I'm pretty good at that kind of stuff. But I'm not the most. But these people couldn't do the basic gardening. Like literally, like you got a seed. How are you going to make it into a tomato? Like they would not have the basic understanding of break up the roots and get some good soil in there and, you know, get a trellis. And so that really is what the essence of the chapter is, that we have all of these people that are spending this money on these degrees of nothingness. And not only that, they're going into debt, and then they get out of college. Now you've got debt. You have a degree that's literally worthless. But meanwhile, some kid who went to a trade school or somebody who actually studied engineering, they can do an awful lot of stuff. So the trap is that the system basically said that getting a 4-year degree is the most important thing out there, and it's just not true. Actually, in that chapter, I go into who he was at my time, my intern, Phoenix is his name. He had said to me while he was interning for me that, you know, he loves what he's doing and he's about to go back to school. And I said to him, forget school. You're great, man. Just stay here. I'm going to give you a full-time job. You're going to make real money.
Right.
We treat you great and you're fantastic at what you do. He said, no, I really feel like I have to go back. Well, this didn't get in the book because then I finished the book, but he's now my associate producer. He dropped out of school.
Oh, he did?
Yeah, it's a beautiful thing. He dropped out of school and the guy's awesome.
Right.
And he moved here and he's living a great life, and his friends are all going into debt. He's now got a great job and doing great things. And so the trap is that they sell you this thing. They're selling you a broken product, and they're saying you need this broken product, and it's broken and you don't need it.
Yeah, and that is the very interesting. You don't need it. And I think people would say in this instance that what did you say his name was? Phoenix. That Phoenix is taking a risk by doing that. It's like, well, yes. Okay. That is there is a risk inherent in that. And if it doesn't work out with you, it's not like he doesn't have a skill set that isn't marketable somewhere else. But I think the greater risk is going to these colleges and getting a degree in nothing, and nobody's hiring, and nobody cares about that 18th century lesbian poetry or whatever the degree is. I would not be surprised if that's a real degree, actually.
I mean, I'm guessing it's not that far off.
Probably not.
We didn't double check, but I'm guessing it's not. But I'll tell you this, you know, when we've been hiring over the last few months, when people send us their resumes, the college is irrelevant to me.
Yeah, I bet.
And actually, if they didn't go to college, that starts looking as a leg up to me. Because if I see someone that at 17 actually was like, no, I worked in a shop for a while, or I worked at my dad's store and I was in the back, whatever. All right. Yeah. Wow, you're functional. There's some stuff that you can do. We've had a running joke with my guys. Like the idea that I would ever hire someone from an Ivy League school. I went to Harvard, so it's like, okay, zippity. So? Yeah, congratulations. You spent an awful lot of money to probably learn all the wrong ideas. Right. You cannot come work for me.
You showed me you're a poor decision maker.
Yeah.
Unless you're a doctor. Okay, I get it.
Yeah, and you know what? Honestly, even if you're a doctor, I don't even know what Harvard specializes in at this point. It's hard to. I know they specialize in racism against Asian people, but besides that, yeah, it just wouldn't mean anything to me. It just wouldn't.
Well, so obviously you guys can pick up a copy of the book, which I highly recommend. In addition to Don't Burn This Book, this is the follow-up. I'm looking forward to the third book as well. Don't
Well, hopefully I don't have to write the third book. Don't burn this. Don't burn this world, right? That's what it's got to be. I mean, don't burn this planet.
I'm pretty sure we can safely assume.
Yeah, it's coming.
It's coming. Yeah,
it's coming. Can I say, by the way, before we finish up,
yeah.
You're probably the only guy in all of Miami wearing a flannel shirt.
There you go.
I mean, there is no. I don't even think you can buy flannel legally in free Florida. It's
I
humid
wear
out
boots,
there.
I wear jeans. I cranked up the AC. Yeah. This is how I roll, right?
Ironically, this is like sort of.
I don't even have anything.
This is sort of flannel-ish, and I am wearing boots too.
I don't have anything that looks like I belong in Miami because I live in Maine. Like, why would I have that?
You got to get a pink or aqua. You know, that's like the colors around here. They love the pink and aqua.
I don't know if I can pull that off.
You can't do it.
I mean, I can try.
You like the mustard yellow and the black.
I do.
That's
what I'm going for. Well, tell us where to connect with you. I know you have a tour coming up as well.
I'm a broadcasting professional, so
you are
right over there.
Right there.
Go to daverubin.com/events. I'm touring for the next month. I'll be in New York and Cali and doing a bunch here in Florida and Texas. I got Glenn Beck joining me and Megyn Kelly. Don Jr.'s joining me in West Palm.
Saw that.
Larry Elder, Dennis Prager, a whole bunch of people. You get a free book with the tickets, daverubin.com/events.
We'll sync it all up for the guys. Dave, appreciate you. Really good to do this in person.
I enjoyed it.
The last one was good, but this one's even better.
You know what? Thank you for dragging me out. And
of course.
You really made a point you wanted to do it in person. It was enjoyable.
I did.
Really.
And I always enjoy these better than the virtual ones. It's just the dynamic's different. So appreciate you. Thanks a lot.
Right on.
See if I can reach you over the microphone.